7 Tips on how to negotiate. Like Kiyotaka Ayanokoji, identify their wants and needs. Knowing your target's wants and needs is crucial for giving yourself leverage in negotiations. When you want to negotiate with someone, it's all about reaching an agreement with them, and it's fundamentally hard to do that if you offer nothing of value to your target. If you cannot obtain this simple piece of information, you put yourself in an inferior position because you essentially have no leverage at all. You can gain this information directly from your target or from someone else that knows this person. However, know that when you are probing for more information, do not ask random questions. You need to ask calculated questions that get to the specific information you need. For example, you could ask questions about their current problem, what they seek to gain, or their opinions on the current situation. This will get you the information to identify their wants and needs, or at the very least, get you closer to obtaining it. Remember that what a person considers valuable will be different for each individual, so don't just assume everyone wants the same thing. You need to actually confirm this information for yourself. Whatever you're offering, make sure it's actually valuable to this specific person. Otherwise you won't reach an agreement simply because they literally have nothing to gain. So it would be in your best interest to identify what is specifically valuable to your target, which is something that Ayanokoji was able to do. In one situation, he identifies that one student is low on points and is desperate for it, so he uses that as leverage in his negotiation with him, eventually reaching an agreement to obtain the test questions in exchange for points, which basically shows the importance of obtaining this type of information when you want to negotiate with someone. Reveal similarities. Building a closer relationship with a person makes it significantly easier to negotiate with them. And one way you can build affinity with your target is by revealing some similarity. This could be showing that you have the same beliefs, ideas, goals, or hobbies. Whatever it may be, just know that it's a good idea to put yourself on common ground with them. The reason you want to show some commonality is simply because humans have a tendency to like people who are similar to themselves. If they see a bit of themselves within you, they will instantly trust you more. So just by exploiting the psychology of similarity, you actually increase your chances of making them reach an agreement with you. This is why it's a good strategy to build a closer relationship first before attempting to negotiate. You can still obviously have a successful negotiation without appearing similar, but know that it will be significantly harder to influence them. Remember that humans are more cautious when there's a lot of unknown aspects, so naturally people are not going to trust you so easily if you display values and characteristics that are opposing or unfamiliar. Simply showing that you have something in common will make it easier for people to put more trust in you. Also, if you wish to do so, you can deceive and lie about this similarity. This might be necessary depending on how different you are from the other person. If you are significantly different, it might be best for you to adopt a certain persona in order to appear likable to your target. Either way, just always remember that humans have an inclination to like others who have similarities to themselves. Eliminate psychological barriers. There's always a reason why a person is reluctant in committing to a certain choice. So if you want your target to reach an agreement with you, you have to be able to recognize and eliminate the psychological barriers that they currently have. These psychological barriers involve fear, uncertainty, and mistrust. There's a way for you to get them to overcome these things, and what you essentially need to do is address their negative emotions and the issues they currently have. For example, this could be you acknowledging their fears, frustrations, or feelings of unhappiness. Basically, you're just establishing empathy towards your target, showing that you understand their feelings and the situation they're currently in. It gives them a sense of understanding and makes the person trust you more, resulting in overcoming psychological barriers. Do not make the mistake of ignoring this, because doing so will just allow these barriers to keep lingering, which results in your target remaining reluctant. Just show that you understand their situation, and you will easily get the person to develop more trust in what you have to say. This is similar to how Ayanokoji handles Ichino's-say. He does this by acknowledging her predicament and feelings when faced with rejecting someone. Since Ayanokoji showed that he understands her situation, it caused her to put trust in Ayanokoji's suggestion on what to do in this situation, resulting in her overcoming her fear of rejecting someone. This is the same thing that you must do when you're negotiating. Just remember to acknowledge whatever's troubling them and show some understanding. This will ultimately remove any psychological barriers that they have. Utilize negative leverage. Typically you would offer some type of value in negotiations, but another form of negotiation that you could potentially use is negative leverage. This is a threat-based form of negotiation. Instead of providing value to your target, you're threatening to take away something valuable to them. This is actually more effective than positive leverage because of something called loss aversion, which basically means that the pain of losing something is more stronger than the pleasure of gaining something. It essentially provides stronger motivation to reach an agreement with you. When using negative leverage, you would once again need to figure out what's specifically important and valuable to your target. You can ask yourself questions such as, what worries them? Who do they care about? What gives them the feeling of self-importance? Etc. Always keep in mind that what they value is not always tangible or monetary. It can also be psychological. This could be a loss of status, reputation, or a meaningful relationship. You can use these against your target to push them into doing what you want. For example, if your target has someone they deeply care about, you can mention how their loved one will be miserable and unhappy if they don't take a specific action. This negative consequence you laid out will ultimately provide stronger motivation to avoid this and will push them into doing what you want them to do. Another example is when Ayanokoji negotiates with a group of students on what to do with the current problem. He mentions that their false accusation can lead them to being expelled, while also offering a solution which can prevent this bad consequence from happening. Since they were all fearful of being expelled, they willingly agreed to the suggestion of withdrawing their complaint, essentially demonstrating how effective negative leverage can be. But keep in mind that it's generally best that you don't be too direct and aggressive when you're using negative leverage. The reason you don't want to do this is because people will get the feeling of losing their autonomy, and when this happens, they will become closed off, resulting in them acting irrationally and end up shutting down the negotiation. You need to leave some breathing room so it feels like they still have a choice in this matter. Be more subtle and mention the negative consequences without being too aggressive. Do this correctly, and you will easily get your target to reach an agreement with you. Adjust to different personalities. Knowing the different personalities you're dealing with is another important aspect in negotiations. And the reason why it's a good idea to identify their personality is so you know what you should do and what you shouldn't do in front of a specific person. The main point I'm conveying here is that there's an optimal way to behave and talk to each person. If you know how to adjust the way you speak to each individual, you increase your chances of a successful negotiation. Not taking their personality into consideration just makes it harder for you to negotiate with certain people. For example, some individuals have a personality that's more emotionally sensitive, so you would have to be more careful on what you say and how you say it. One wrong move and you will easily anger or upset your target. If you're negotiating with an emotional person, you need to be more polite, humble, and kind. This is the type of language they speak, and it's what they want from another person. On the other hand, some individuals are more logical, straightforward, and less emotional in the way they think. If this is the case, you should engage in more intelligent conversation and get straight to business. If you're emotional in the way you talk and beat around the bush, you will likely just annoy this type of person. This is why you need to observe and read all these individuals. It will allow you to find the best way to talk to all these different personalities, which is something that Ayanokoji can do. In one instance, Ayanokoji tries to make a deal with his teacher and knows the best way to speak to her, which is why he doesn't irritate her with complaining, begging, or the feelings of others. This is because her type of personality doesn't care about these things. She's more serious, cold, blunt, and intelligent in the way she speaks and behaves. So talking and behaving in a similar manner would increase your chances of convincing her, which is exactly why Ayanokoji adapts and speaks to her in an intelligent manner. If you can adjust to different personalities as well, it will definitely get you closer to superior levels of negotiating. Avoid arguing. Negotiation is not about arguing with your target. It's about uncovering information and using that to show what value you both can gain out of this mutual agreement. It's important to keep this in mind so that you don't lose sight of your main objective. Remember, you're not here to prove who's right. You're here to get what you want from your target. And heated arguments are never going to convince them. All it does is put them in an angry mental state, which causes them to become unwilling in the first place. To not get yourself into this position, you just need to simply avoid criticizing your target. Understand that criticism involves disapproval, harsh judgments, and disrespect, so it would make sense for a person to become unwilling to help you. If you criticize them, I would strongly encourage you to not do this in negotiations and to resist the urge to do so at all cost. The reason you might do this in the first place is because you have a psychological need to prove that you're right, or you just want to feel superior. While it might feel good in the moment, it's not going to get you the best results for negotiations. Instead of performing these foolish actions, you need to work towards cooperation. And the way you encourage cooperation is by asking questions towards your target. This is something I have mentioned previously, but realize that it's not only about obtaining information for yourself. Questions can be used to give your target more information and a better understanding on the situation as well. It helps them to figure out what can be done to reach a mutual agreement with you. For example, you could ask questions such as, what is concerning you at the moment? How can this problem be solved? What can you offer me in return? Etc. These questions help the target work towards a solution and makes them contemplate your situation as well. It basically shapes the negotiating environment and encourages them to work with you rather than against you. Doing this is significantly better than starting a divisive argument and will always put you in a better position when negotiating. Listen to control the conversation. In conversations, you might think that the person who is talking has more control, but in reality, it's actually the person who's listening. This is because the talker is revealing information and the listener is gaining information which can be used to their advantage. Understand that as soon as you actually listen, you gain all the valuable information that you can use, allowing you to direct the conversation and respond in the most optimal way to what they're saying. You won't be able to do this if you're constantly talking with no purpose in mind. Ideally, you should only be speaking if you listen to your target beforehand and have a good purpose behind why you're doing it. A good purpose to actually speak could be to gain their trust, to probe for more information, or to encourage them to think of solutions. These actually get you closer to a successful negotiation, and it's not just pointless chatter that achieves nothing. Remember, if you're not listening closely, you essentially have no information to work with, which ultimately means you don't know the best way to respond and you have no idea on how to convince them. But if you do closely listen to all the details they give you, you essentially have the ability to control the discussion, enabling you to speak with a calculated purpose because of the information you learned previously. Do this and you will improve your ability to effectively negotiate. Thanks for watching VevenSeven.